Hi, my name is Trey,
And my name is Willie.
And my name is Amajani.
and today we'll be telling you about top down processing versus bottom up processing in cognition. First, we'll start out by talking briefly about top down processing. Top down processing refers to how our brains make use of the information that is brought about by our brains by one or more of our sensory systems. Our sensory systems include hearing, touch, smell, taste, or sight. So just any of your senses that you use on a daily basis. Top-down processing first processes as general information and then it gets more specific as you recognize the object. This was conducted by Grill Spector, Kalanick, and Canwisher when they experimented with 61 participants and found that we first detect an object and then we recognize an object. But not only do we just recognize the object, we also break that recognition down into a subcategory. For example, whenever we happen to see a vehicle cross our periphery, we happen to notice that it's a car instead of a truck. Then we may happen to recognize that it's a Toyota instead of a Nissan. And from there, we may recognize that it's a Toyota Camry. So as we detected the object, we recognize that it's a car, we recognize that it's a Toyota, and then we further recognize that it's a Toyota Camry. So this is how we process our information from a top-down processing perspective.
That's very interesting, Latrell. I would like to take a moment to talk about bottom up processes in cognition. I would first like to define what cognition is, and that it is a mental process of knowing, including aspects such as awareness, perception, reasoning, and judgment. Cognition in itself contains a bottom up process which is influenced by the stimulus itself. When I say stimulus, I am talking about a person or thing, action, or condition that calls forth or hastens a response or a reaction. Put simply, the bottom up process is influenced by the features that are in view. A visual example of this would be seeing the color red in shades. For each gradual darkening of the color red would directly shape the processing of the features that are in view. As the color grows darker, your mind will process each shade of red, and this is why this is called a data-driven process. Uh, Let me actually refer to a study that ties into what I just said, and that was done by Whiting, Sample, and Hagen, called the top-down process modulates older adults' susceptibility to noise. In this research study, it was done to determine whether older or younger adults, by using top-down processes versus bottom-up processes, were able to make less intense the effect of display interference during simple feature visual search. The researchers sought to use visual search as a method to determine the ability to search and detect the current existence of a visual target in the person's environment and whether internal or external interference would have an effect on reaction time as facilitated by top-down versus bottom-up processes in older adults as well as younger adults. But whether the task is classified as top-down or bottom-up, the interaction of the two processes in a task indicates that no task involving both processes is pure. So, as it was concluded, the older adults were able to improve the research capability even as they relate to the bottom-up conditions when top-down features were constant and made expectation consistent from previous trials. This also made older adults more capable of lessening the effect of increasing display noise during top-down conditions in relation to the younger adults who were not as capable. There is also evidence suggested that older age increases neural interference and that this may be a specific mechanism in a variety of cognitive tasks.
Thank you, Willie. To tie into Willie's study, younger adults are noted to be better with bottom-up processing. In relation to my study, done by Oshner et al., top-down and bottom-up processing were studied in relation to emotion regulation. This study was conducted on 20 undergraduate women from Stanford University ranging in age from 18 to 23. This younger demographic provided conclusive results that bottom-up processing had a greater effect within trials than top-down processing. In the study, the participants were instructed to look at images in 3 separate trials and process them using bottom-up or top-down processing of how the images were perceived. In the top-down negative trial, the participants were instructed to look at an image and think of the image in ways that made them feel negative. In the bottom-up negative trial, participants were shown images and allowed to respond naturally. The final result showed that participants showed greater negative effect using bottom-up processing than top-down processing.
That's also interesting, Nadia.
And so as a recap, top-down processing refers to how our brains make use of the information that has already been brought about by our brains or into our brains by one or more of our sensory systems. And bottom-up processing is more of a data-driven processing. And you can't use one without the other, and one doesn't work purely without the other. So you use both in everything that you do and in everything that you recall cognitively. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.